Hi, my name is Cass and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving you guys a bunch of book recs, 17 to be specific, of my top 5 favorite books plus 2 honorable mentions of my top 3 favorite genres to read. Literary fiction, sci-fi, and fantasy. I love all of these genres so much. My favorite books are in all of them. I have tattoos from specific books from each of these genres because I love these books so much and they make up me as a reader. I never want to force myself into a box as a reader, and I feel like just reading one specific genre does that to me, and it's fine if you do. If you only like fantasy or sci-fi, literary fiction, romance, go right on ahead. That is completely fine. I just know for me, it feels very repetitive if I only am reading one specific genre, so I like to genre hop. And because I genre hop, I have a lot of my favorites where I can go and find comfort and some of my new favorite reads of all time. For me, literary fiction is my all-time favorite genre. It is the genre that I consider home. It is the one that I grew up reading and continue to read, and pretty much is the one that without it, I really wouldn't be a fantasy reader because I read Addie LaRue and that's what got me into fantasy. So I'm going to be giving you my 5 favorite books of sci-fi, fantasy, and literary fiction. And I also have 2 honorable mentions because it was hard to narrow it down when it came to the literary fiction and the fantasy genre, just because I read so much of them and there are so many good books out there. So without further ado, let's get into these books. In no particular order except for the last book, which I think is the best sci-fi book to ever be written. This is the sci-fi category. A Desolation Called Peace by Arkady Martine. This is the second book in the Text-Calumny duology, and this duology is so underrated, it's not even funny. It follows along Mahit Dismar, who is the Text-Calumny ambassador. She gets sent to the Text-Calumny capital where she becomes the new ambassador after her previous ambassador dies mysteriously. She realizes that there is a lot more happening than she's even told about, but she doesn't quite realize what exactly is happening. There are a lot of political forces at play that are trying to prevent Mahit Dismar from determining what happened to her predecessor and why he mysteriously died, but why nobody wants her to know at all. When it comes to creating a complex cast of characters, politics, and also just world building, this book does it effortlessly, but also making it so simple to grasp. Honestly, the most difficult part was trying to understand the naming system behind the Text-Calumnies in general. The first book, A Memory Called Empire, was fantastic, and I immediately had to dive into the second book, and I feel like this one really branches out when you are diving into the politics, what drives the political aspects of these characters, but also the force of natures and complexities within the book itself. Not only is it a space opera, but it is also a sapphic space opera with a subplot of romance that just gives you the barest little hints of it, and you love it all the same. If you are looking for your next new sci-fi adventure space opera duology, this book is absolutely perfect. Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is a mind-bending sci-fi book. When Jason gets knocked unconscious by his kidnapper, he wakes up to a strange man looming over top of him saying, "Welcome home." And he doesn't know who this person is, and this isn't actually his home. Jason soon realizes that everything he once knew is no longer true, and a failure from his past was actually made possible in this alternate universe, and now he wants to get back to what he considers his actual home. But so does everybody else. This book is absolutely thrilling. You are constantly turning page after page, wanting to read faster because the book itself consumes you as you are consuming it as well. Not only does Blake Crouch create this thrilling and eerie vibe when it comes to the book, but also the way that you are feeling for Jason and you want what's best for him. You want him to get home to his family, but you also realize that there's a lot more at stake than what he realizes. This was my first Blake Crouch book, and it was definitely not my last, and is the reason I own pretty much every book that he has ever written since. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Ryland Grace wakes up and does not know where he is, but he's on a spaceship, doesn't know how he got there, and the kicker, he doesn't even actually remember his own name. As his memories slowly start returning, he realizes that he is set on the impossible mission to save the planet Earth from its ultimate destruction and extinction. As he realizes the rest of his crewmates has tragically passed, he believes himself to be alone and set on this impossible journey and doesn't know how exactly he's going to succeed. Or does he? The connection that you have with these characters, but also just the emotions that you're going to be going through as you're reading, is utterly mind-blowing, and it's just perfect. I loved how, even though this is a science fiction and is very heavy on the science, Andy Weir does an excellent job at being able to explain everything without it being too heavy-handed. You're going to love the science aspect, you are going to love the characters, and the amount of world building that goes into just a spaceship. It was just so much fun, so emotional, the roller coaster of emotions that you are going to be going on. This book is utterly perfect, and I just love it so much, and you should probably read it before the movie comes out next year. Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is the second book in the Locked Tomb series, the first book being Gideon the Ninth. Harrow is invited by the Emperor to compete in a deadly trial, and Gideon has to come along with her. There is so many cutthroat politics, Hunger Games style-esque trials, and so many twists and turns that you feel like you're not quite following along, but you actually are. And when the reveal finally happens, you are jaw on the floor, gasping, clutching your pearls, not even realize quite what's happening, but realizing that it was utterly a masterpiece. When you get to the second book, you don't feel like you actually read the first book, and if you were anything like me, you probably went back to make sure you actually picked up the second book and not the third book on accident, because you have no idea what's going on. But it is so much fun as you are getting the chance to dive into these characters' heads. You are seeing a whole new side of all of these characters. Everything that you thought you knew, you were wrong about, and there was so much depth that came out of it. I also really liked the alternating perspectives, and also the fact that you go from first, second, and third point of view constantly throughout, keeping you on your toes, never knowing quite what is going to be happening. Tamsin Muir is a mastermind, and the world that she was able to create from this is just mind-blowing. I loved every single second of the Locked Tomb series. This series is one of the best to ever be written, and if you haven't picked it up yet, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. Morningstar by Pierce Brown is the third book in the Red Rising saga. Red Rising follows along Darrow, who is a Red, and the Reds are the ants of Mars. They are tasked with making Mars habitable for everybody else, but when Darrow finds out that Mars has actually been habitable for years and they are nothing but slaves on the planet, he gets sent and is now going to be part of an uprising and a rebellion to take over the gold. The first book feels a lot like the Hunger Games and at an academy, but as the books progress, the politics, how cutthroat they are, but also how vast these characters and this world really is just insane. I love the emotional connection you have to all of these characters, and I was so invested in their story, in their growth, the changes that you are seeing and witnessing, but also just being able to watch them succeed but fail all at the exact same time. I also really just love the way that Pierce Brown writes. I just think his writing is mesmerizing. You are so invested in this story and in this world. You do not want to let it go. It is consuming beyond belief, and this series is just pretty much my favorite of all time. Now on to the fantasy section. For my honorable mention, Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Is this book perfect? Yes. But are there other books that I think are more perfect? Also yes. I really have been loving the Stormlight Archive. I am about 20% of the way done with Oathbringer, and I'm thoroughly enjoying the world that Brandon Sanderson is created. And I really love the magic systems and how unique they all are. When it comes to Words of Radiance specifically, I liked finding out these nuances about these characters. I really like getting the chance to see them grow because I felt like they were all very flat in the way of kings, and considering how long of a book it was, it's kind of shocking. But the world building led up to so much when it came to the creation of this book. Words of Radiance is just beautiful in so many different layers and aspects of it, and I'm really excited to continue on this series. Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. This is the final book in the Grainbone saga. This book just makes my heart flutter and also makes my heart ache. I loved getting the chance to see the Call family grow up over the course of this book. It spans decades, and the intricacies that make these characters, watching how certain actions from the first book can impact these characters so many years and decades later, just makes this book what it is. You become family with the Calls, but I really just loved getting to watch all of these characters grow up, start their own families, and see their families begin to thrive. It was so beautiful and one of the best conclusions you have ever witnessed when it comes to a third book. The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the final book in the Daevabad trilogy. The Daevabad trilogy follows along Nahari, who is a con artist from Cairo. When she accidentally summons a djinn, she gets swept away to the world of Daevabad, where there is so much more going on than she knew, and realizes that she was actually kind of at the center of it, whether she wanted to be or not. When it comes to rich and detailed world building, you are going to find that here. It is inspired by Middle Eastern folklore and history, and you can feel the research that went into creating these characters, also this world and the politics themselves. I think S.A. Chakraborty is an absolute fantastic writer, and as you are getting the chance to watch these characters throughout progress, but also you are getting the chance to see this world expand, and the depth and the time and commitment that goes into creating it, I just loved every single second of it. A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. This is the final book in the Shades of Magic trilogy. This takes place in a parallel London. 4 parallel Londons to be specific. This world has 4. There is red, black, white, and gray, and each determines how much magic there is. Kel is an Antari and has the ability to travel between each of the Londons, and he's also a secret smuggler. When he finds a relic from Black London, he gets pulled in a direction he wasn't expecting, and the only person that's able to save him is Delilah Baird, a thief from Grey London, the London with no magic at all. This series is not only riveting from every single page, but also the magic system itself is really what is so compelling. I love the fact that not everybody has magic, and magic is not passed down through blood. Random people can have it, and I feel like that makes it so unique from every single magic system you normally see nowadays. Though this is a more modern fantasy, it has that classic fantasy feel with the character studies and nuances that really helps drive this force of nature of a book forward. When it comes to the conclusion of this trilogy, you are finally seeing the magic struggles at its peak and also at its lowest, and you are witnessing the politics at play really trying to thrive, but also being forced down. This book is rich not only in detail and complexities from the world building, but also these characters are going to have you so emotionally invested in them that you don't want to let them go because of the connection that you have, but also the growth that you have witnessed of them. One of my all-time favorite characters ever is in this book. It really gives anti-heroes the chance to shine and to see really what makes them them, but also gives them the chance of a redemption arc as well. Ruin by John Gwynne. This is the 3rd book in the Faithful and the Fallen series, one of the best series to ever be written. I talk about it all the time, and for good reasons. It is wonderful. A god war is coming in the Banished Lands, and there are chess pieces that are already in motion, and these characters are on the chessboard unaware of what part of this puzzle and what part of this chessboard they are playing. You have multiple different perspectives, and you are witnessing good versus evil, and the chance to see on good and evil's sides and perspectives without quite knowing which side is good and which side is evil. You're forced into an action-packed world with so much going on that it sometimes feels almost impossible to keep up with, but John Gwynne does an excellent job at being able to track every single motion, that when the puzzle finally comes together and you take a look back at what is surrounding you, you realize how mind-blowingly amazing he is at creating this complex world. I specifically love this one the most because I feel like you really get the chance to see these characters thrive, but I feel like you also get a chance to see this world thrive. You really get to witness the good versus evil nature specifically in this book. I really liked the fact that all of these characters are finally getting to realize who they are, but also the fact that what they knew might not actually be real. This is such an interesting book. It feels like classic fantasy, and it is beautiful because of it. I cannot get enough of this series, and I cannot get enough of John win. I love the action and the battle scenes that he creates, because sometimes it's so difficult to follow along in them, but you have so many battle scenes in this and you can follow every single character perfectly. And that says something about a good writer there. The Will of the Many by James Islington. This is a fantasy dark academia that is so fast-paced. It is thrusting you into a society that is similar to ancient Rome. Your main character, Viz, was orphaned 3 years ago after a tragic accident, and now he is at a prestigious academy where he is sent there to infiltrate it, to find secrets, solve a murder, and determine a mystery. Though the political intrigue is on the more complex side, I felt like James Islington did an excellent job at being able to thoroughly explain it without ever info dumping at all. And that's pretty impressive in and of itself. The magic system is unique. There are so many different facets to it, and I'm hoping and I'm praying and I have a feeling that it is going to be more thoroughly explained come the future books, because I feel like you're just getting the base of the hierarchy and what the system and magic really is, and I have so many more questions that I need answered. Viz is an exceptional protagonist. He is so well fleshed out, and for being a first-person narrative, the fact that you are able to fully understand, grasp, and feel for all of your supporting characters also says how well this book is actually written. I'm still not over the ending of this book, and I had to read it multiple times to even accept what I was reading, because I don't feel like it was actually true. I cannot wait for The Strength of the Few to come out. It is one of my most anticipated reads for this year, and this book and this series I know is god tier. And on to the literary fiction category. The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Steen is my honorable mention. This follows along Enzo, and you are getting a dog's perspective as his love for his owner and race car driving really gets shown in this book. It is absolutely breathtaking, beautiful, powerful, lyrical, emotional, every single thing, as you are getting the chance to explore Enzo's life, and through the perspective of a dog, you are also going to be witnessing the ups and downs of humans, and you are also getting the chance to see the emotions and the impact that the dog has on you and you have on your dog. Make sure you have tissues, because this one is going to hurt you in the best ways possible. Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. This follows along Mungo, who is a Protestant, as he slowly begins to fall in love with James, who is a Catholic, and they are supposed to be sworn enemies. Hamish is Mungo's brother and is also a gang leader, and when he finds out that Mungo has slowly been falling for James, he has to rectify the situation. A few months later, Mungo's mother sends him on a fishing trip with 2 men to Western Scotland and a loch, and a lot happens there as well. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about how beautifully gut-wrenching this book actually was. It was lyrical, but it was also breathtaking and heartbreaking all at the exact same time. Young Mungo is steeped in tragedy, and you are getting pulled along as the reader to see and deal with the grief that Mungo has to deal with, but also to deal with the tragedy that he is forced into. You are going to be utterly entranced and transformed by this book in the best and worst ways possible. There were so many times that I had tears streaming down my face while reading this book, and it just changed me as a reader and made me fall in love with reading all over again. All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. I do not condone what happened in this book. This book was beautifully written. Now we'll continue. This is a beautiful and provocative love story between 2 unlikely people. You have Wavy, who is the daughter of a drug dealer and a mother who is a druggie. And then you also have Kellen, who works for her drug dealing father. This unlikely pair ends up forming a bond and soon eventually a relationship. And there is a lot of other things that go on in between. When it comes to the subject matter of this book, I do not condone anything that happened in it, but I will admit that Bryn Greenwood did an excellent job at creating such a beautiful story out of such a terrible subject matter. This book is truly all of the ugly and the wonderful things wrapped into one. You are watching the loss of innocence, but the gaining of individuality throughout these pages for Wavy, for Kellen, and for all these other characters. I was weeping at the end of it, as there is so much joy and so much heartbreak throughout. I loved this book. I do not emphasis, once again, like the subject matter, but it was a great book, and I really think more people should read it, with trigger warnings and making sure that you are okay with the subject matter, because I do not condone it. In Memoriam by Alice Wynne, this is her debut novel. It is set in World War I, and it follows along Henry Gaunt and Sydney Elwood, two classmates who are safely away from the war in their idyllic English countryside school. These two are best friends. However, Gaunt has been dealing with a private dilemma, his infatuation for his best friend Elwood. And to escape his infatuation, he ends up signing his life away and going to war. At the front, he feels like he is finally safe from these feelings that he had, but slowly Elwood and all of their other classmates make the journey to the front as well. This is a tale of forbidden romance, but an epic and tragic love story as well. And the fact that this was a debut and you were able to feel these characters' emotions and their arcs and their depth really come off the pages and help drive this story really shows how fantastic of a writer Wynne really is. You are seeing the brutalities of war, children forced to grow up in the midst of it as well, but also forced to give up and to lose much of themselves while trying to preserve and protect those they love around them. This was a consuming book and you want to read it in one sitting, but I promise it is better to let it seep and let it simmer and to be able to feel the majestic nature of this writing, because once you've read it, you won't be able to read it again. Beartown by Frederick Bachman takes place in the small hockey town of Beartown, where hockey is life. And the junior hockey team has the chance of bringing a new, fresh start to this town. And right before the semifinals, a brutal, tragic tragedy ends up occurring and sets everything up in flames. A young girl is traumatized by a violent act, and this small town is up in arms about it. You are going to be witnessing how a town responds to tragedy and how those who are friends might not actually be, and what everybody is going to do when there's so much at stake. When it comes to family dynamics, when it comes to relationships, and when it comes to being a person, all of this is at stake, all of this is talked about, and you are going to be obsessed and consumed by every single thing that Frederick Bachman writes. The way that he is able to sneak into your head and pull your thoughts out and put them on paper, and how you would react and how you would feel to everything going on around these characters is wild and beautiful in the best and worst ways possible. Frederick Bachman writes like no other author I have seen before. I am so invested in these characters and the story that he creates and the worlds that he builds, and I just love everything about it. He is my favorite author of all time, and I can never get enough of his writing and just how emotionally invested I become in his stories and how many tears I end up shedding. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is my favorite book of all time, so I'm extremely biased when it comes to this book, but it follows along Evelyn Hugo, who is a recluse Hollywood star who has had 7 husbands, but nobody quite knows who her true love really was. When Monique Grant gets the chance to have an exclusive interview in a tell-all story with Evelyn herself, she realizes that she is also involved in Evelyn's story without even realizing. This book will sweep you off your feet, and you are going to feel as though Evelyn is actually real and these characters are all real. This is set in Hollywood in the 60s, and you have all the glitz and the glam, but also the drama that takes place during that time as well. These characters are so interesting, so flawed, and so complex that every time you think you understand them and get them under your belt, you are actually wrong. And I just love Evelyn herself, and as you are watching her begin to accept who she is, how she identifies, what she wants to become, when she is trying to find love, when the person she wants to love the most makes it almost difficult, and it's also in part her own fault as well. I love this book with every fiber of my being, and I have reread it so often that I can quote passages verbatim without even thinking twice about it, because I have reread it that much and they are ingrained on the back of my eyelids. It is complex, it is gritty, and it is raw, it is real, and is everything that you could possibly want, and you should read it. So yeah, if you can't tell, I have a vast variety of books that I like to read. So many different authors, so many different genres, and just so many different aspects that I love and I care about. I will say characters are really what drives me in a book. If I can find a good cast of characters, I'm going to fall head over heels in love with a book. And that's pretty much goes to show with all of these books, because I can't help but mention these characters to you because they play such vital roles in creating and making the books what they are. Even if the characters aren't the main focal point, even if they are more plot-driven books, these characters guide and dictate what makes these books themselves and makes them unique. I hope you guys enjoyed me yapping. I talked way more than I was expecting to, but when it comes to books I love, I cannot help but express my joy through words, because that's what I like to do the most. Talk about things I like. So I apologize for yapping your ear off. I'm probably going to do it again, but I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys again next week. Cool.